What's up, everybody? Chester ARP Church Devotional Podcast. So glad you're with us. What a joy it is to read the Bible, discuss it together. Take a moment to share this, if you will. Esther chapter 2, beginning in verse 1. After these things, when the anger of King Ahasuerus had abated, he remembered Vashti and what she had done and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's young men who attended him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought for the king. And the king appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom to gather all the beautiful young virgins to the harem in Susa the citadel, under custody of Haggai, the king's eunuch, who is in charge of the women. Let their cosmetics be given them, and let the young women who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti." This pleased the king, and he did so. Now, let's just pause for a second right here. We're going to read a little bit more, but let me pause for a second right now. King Ahasuerus has put Queen Vashti away because Queen Vashti refused to do what he wanted her to do. She refused to put herself on display. She was a strong woman who said, "I have more dignity than that. I'm not going to be undignified. I'm not going to let you ruin my dignity. I'm not going to come in here and be an object of your of lust and an object of desire by your men who are with you as your party, and you're all drunk. I'm just not going to do it." So all the men pushed King Ahasuerus in his anger to make a decree against her. She's no longer going to be the queen, and nobody else's wives could treat them that way, etc. And so now he has decided that his anger has ceased, and he's sobered up, that he needs to find another lady to be the queen. And the king's men come to him and say, "Hey, look, why don't you go out and find all these virgins, these young virgins, not just virgins, young virgins. Go out and find these young virgins and bring them in from all over the kingdom, put them under the custody of Haggai, and then you have your opportunity to sleep with all of them. And then whichever one pleases you the most, she can become the queen instead of Vashti." And the king said, "Yeah, I think that's a good idea." Of course he said, "That's a good idea." And so he said, "Yeah, that's a good idea, so let's do it." So that's what they do. Now there was a Jew in Susa, the citadel, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, son of Shimei, son of Kish, a Benjaminite, who had been carried away from Jerusalem among the captives carried away from Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had carried away. He was bringing up Hadassah, that is Esther, the daughter of his uncle, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman had a beautiful figure and was lovely to look at. And when her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So when the king's orders and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered in Susa the citadel in custody of Haggai, Esther also was taken into the king's palace and put in custody of Haggai, who had charge of the women. And the young woman pleased him and won his favor. And he quickly provided for her with her cosmetics and her portion of food, and with 7 chosen young women from the king's palace, and advanced her and her young women to the best place in the harem. Esther had not made known her people or her kindred, for Mordecai had commanded her not to make it known. And every day Mordecai walked in front of the court of the harem to learn how Esther was and what was happening to her. Now, this is another part of the story, that now we have Mordecai entering the story, and we have another young lady entering the story named Esther. So Queen Vashti has been put away because of her refusal to do what the king has commanded her to do and demanded her to do. Hey, she's a heroine. We talked about that. King Ahasuerus and his counselors have all decided now that he's going to go out and find young virgins and bring them in and make his choice from all of them, whichever one pleases him. And so he's taken all these young women from all over the place and bringing them into the city, capital of Susa, there and under the charge of this eunuch. And now we find Mordecai and Esther being brought into the story. Esther is a beautiful young woman. She is a young lady who Mordecai is raising as his own daughter. Mordecai is her cousin. Esther is the daughter of his uncle, which makes her his cousin. And Esther is brought in. Mordecai doesn't volunteer her. She doesn't volunteer herself, but she is brought into the harem because of the king's command, the king's edict. Mordecai is wise in counseling her and says, "Hey, listen, don't tell them all you're Jew. Just go and do what they tell you to do. Is all you can do, right? If you disobey the king, you die. So you have to go in and you have to be a member of this harem. And she quickly, because of the Lord's grace upon her, this unseen hand of God's favor working in this story, she quickly finds herself in a position of prominence in the harem. The person in charge of the harem finds her to be a wonderful person. He likes her. He puts her at the choicest places. He gives her the choicest women. He gives her to serve her. He gives her cosmetics. He gives her food, etc. So we see God's hand at work here in this story. And Mordecai is encouraging her not to make known the fact that she is a Jew, and that's wise. Now when the turn came from each woman to go in King Ahasuerus, and being 12 months under the regulations for the women, since this was the regular period of their beautifying, 6 months with oil and myrrh, and 6 months with spices and ointments for women, the young woman went into the king in this way. She was given whatever she desired to take with her from the harem to the king's palace. In the evening she would go in, and in the morning she would return to the second harem in custody of Shaashgaz, the king's eunuch, who was in charge of the concubines. She would not go in to the king again unless the king delighted in her, and she was summoned by name. When turn came from Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his own daughter to go into the king, she asked for nothing except what Haggai, the king's eunuch, who had charge of the women, advised. Now Esther was winning favor in the eyes of all who saw her. And when Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the women, and she won grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king gave a great feast for all his officials and servants. It was Esther's feast, and he also granted remission of taxes to the province and gave gifts with royal generosity. So now Esther goes in, and as she goes in, she wisely says, hey, look, I'm going to take only what you tell me to take, only what you think I need to take. And the eunuch says, whatever it is, here's what you take. And so she goes in to the king, and the king is pleased. She finds favor with the king. She continues to find favor with everyone. This is a direct demonstration or illustration of the grace of God being poured out upon her. God's at work. She finds herself in a position where she is pleasing to the king. She will become queen, and she receives a feast. Not much to this story outside of the fact that you see God's hand working here. And if you know the rest of the story, you know that God is putting her in a place that she is going to be a savior of the Jewish people. And so God is using her and putting her in a place where she can be beneficial to save the Jewish people and to advance the cause of God and his people in the world. And that's what God does. He puts us in places where he can use us to advance his kingdoms both now and forevermore. You guys take care. God bless you. I hope God is working in your life and you see his hand, but don't be dismayed. If you don't see his hand at work all the time, recognize that he is still at work and look for the blessings he has given to you where you are today. You guys have a great day. God bless you. Catch you next time.